The brotherly battle on the Beltway between Lamar Jackson and Jayden Daniels leads us to have even a bigger quarterback discussion all day here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Come on in, man, and welcome to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts to know your favorite teams like no one else. I'm the host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Matt Williamson. On today's episode, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what I call a Thanksgiving Bowl. That's where we're going to end up while we do a whip around the league. Dallas and Detroit get it on, but it's not Thanksgiving. Right in the middle of the show, Niners win, and there's a head coach quarterback dynamic that I think people really need to pay attention to because a lot of teams get that wrong. We're going to start it talking about that battle of the Beltway against the Washington Commanders versus the Baltimore Ravens. Two friends. They'll be foes this weekend. But it also will help lead us into this overall quarterback discussion that we really do want to have. Today's episode is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you head on over to FanDuel, man, FanDuel.com, and get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you to the everydayers that join us here on Locked On NFL. Matt Williamson, I watched a lot of football this weekend, and I watched the game the Thursday night game. And quarterbacks are extremely important. But I think some teams are getting it wrong. And here's what they're doing. They're putting the cart before the horse. They're not worried about the structure and the infrastructure of the team before they get the quarterback, and they're putting everything on the quarterback, and I think that's leading to a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think that is some of the root of the problems. You know, like these bad teams have to take a quarterback early, or at least they think so. And you and I haven't been doing this podcast long, but I've been doing podcasts long, and I have been talking about the nest. I think you need to build a nest for the incoming egg. It's a very delicate egg that's going to come, and it needs to land in a nice, soft nest. And a lot of these nests that these quarterbacks fall into are on fire.
Ooh, woo! I love it, man. I love it because you put the GOAT. The GOAT fell into a good nest. Bill Belichick had structure for Tom Brady, right?
Right.
And you know, I think sometimes it's just that we see the end result, and I liken it myself to building a house. Even Lamar Jackson, who we're going to talk about here in a second, that's a nest. Baltimore is a great organization run by a lot of the same people that's been there since Ozzie Newsome was there. And it's very nice. I like what Washington has done too. Let me listen to David Harrison, Locked On Commanders, the way he talks about Jayden Daniels here.
Offensively, the biggest story obviously has to be Jayden Daniels. He just won the Nickelodeon Slime Time Player of the Week. He just got the Hemi Trophy from Van Pelt on ESPN, and he got the FedEx Air and Ground Player of the Week award. So there's a lot of people feeling Jayden these days. The key for the Washington Commanders is for Jayden Daniels and his offense to not get feeling themselves as much as other people are feeling them. Jayden was asked about a lot of that stuff, and he kind of put it in the way that he's always put it. It's another game. It doesn't matter what you did before. It doesn't matter what he did at LSU. The Heisman Trophy isn't going to win him any games in the NFL. But the thing about it is, some people say it. When Jayden says it, you actually believe it. And now the trophies are put away. Now the pictures are done. Now what do we need to do to prepare for the Cleveland Browns? That's where his focus is. And I think that is kind of that veteran sense in a rookie that really has kind of taken hold with the Washington Commanders.
I know that's beauty to your ears, isn't it, my brother? You love to hear a quarterback that has that infrastructure, understands that he has to be great too, because they brought him there for. But he does. I said this the other day to somebody. Superman was only Superman for like an hour every day. The other 23 hours, he was Clark Kent. He was doing all the other stuff, right? But very good point by him, and that's why I like Jayden Daniels so much.
Yeah, I really like his mental makeup. I mean, those first couple games, the numbers really showed this out too, that anytime he was pressured, he just ran. You know, they just made it easy for him. That was the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season of his career. You don't need to sit back there and go through your progressions and make mistakes. You have these wonderful legs. Let's use them. You know, I mean, why would you not? You know, and I also think it's important to note that this guy played 6 years of college football, and at the very high level at the end. So he's a little more NFL ready, mature than maybe some of the guys that get thrown in really young in life. But now he's going through his progressions. He has a great attitude and leadership and appreciation for those around him. He says all the right things. He does all the right things, highly accurate, and still has those wheels.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. My wife been trying to get me to go back to the gym. She was saying, "You got those beautiful legs. Why don't you use them on a treadmill?" Right? So it ain't quite working out like we thought, but it's coming. I tell you what, somebody else. We look at guys like Lamar Jackson, the opponent for Jayden Daniels, and we think that just because he has this outwardly, very, very rare ability, we forget sometimes that he is also a part of a structured organization. And a structured organization doesn't really make decisions that are impulsive. And there's a lot of talk. Mark Clayton, in fact, I'm sorry, but there's some talk. Kevin Ostracker spoke to a longtime Raven great wide receiver, and they talked about perhaps do you get Devontae Adams? Do you not? Here's why an organization like Baltimore might not reach that fast.
Part of it is like, yes, I think, having somebody like that, but then there's the chemistry piece too. It's, these teams that you kind of assemble somewhat of an all-star squad, and then the chemistry doesn't quite work out. Locker room, relationship isn't quite what it needs to be to make a Super Bowl championship squad. And I'm like, well, yes, but then at the same time, the relationship, the chemistry, the rhythm that we have with the guys that we have in the locker room right now is so good, and to me, getting better. And we have a long season ahead, and so there's a lot more to learn about them. That has, to me, Super Bowl potential as well. So even if Devontae isn't in the mix and that doesn't become a thing, I feel like we're good with what we got. We really are. We play really good defense. We play all three phases of the game. We're knowing more who we are and leaning into that. And I think that is a real formula for Super Bowl success.
Yeah, that Red River shootout this weekend. My man Mark Clayton sporting the Oklahoma shirt there, the Oklahoma shirt. I think they might wear one, but that's for another day. We ain't gonna talk college football. But I will tell you this: it does show you why good teams that have this infrastructure are not willing. Pittsburgh was one of them for a long, and still are to a certain degree. They don't make rush, impulsive decisions, even when a player is out there as good as Devontae Adams.
Yeah, close to the Steelers too. Like, Coach Tomlin has not said if it's going to be Wilson or Fields or who his starter is. And that goes back to the Rooney family of they don't make decisions until they have to. Why would I do it 2 weeks ahead of when I have to, and why would I tell the world about those things? And the Ravens are very, very similar. And it's a great, great organization. I don't think it's an accident that Steeler Ravens is one of the best rivalries out there. And, they look at things very, very similarly. And I think that is an important piece. We're not building a fantasy team here. You throw a big contract, a big ego into a locker room, things are going to change, better or worse, and there's no doubt about that. And you mentioned Brady earlier. Brady took less money than he could have asked for. And a big reason for that worked out so well for that organization is, let's say Vrabel or McGinnis or Moss or Welker or whoever's coming up for a contract and goes up to ownership, and they come back and say, well, we can't give you more than Tom. Right. What are we doing here? That's like, we can't give you more than Tom. And how do you combat that as an agent? Like, I hear you.
Yeah, you can't. You can't combat that, and it's always a big problem. I think people get lost, man, and they don't really understand. When you're well-run organization, I don't care if it's football, military, whatever it is, you have a plan. And just because some nice little ornament is dangled in front of you, it's like, okay, you're going to stop all of the stuff you're doing just to take a look. No, it's not a part of the plan. And if the plan is working, why would you stop it? We're going to talk more about
real quick, that's my big complaint with the Panthers since new ownership took over is every little shiny thing. Ooh, I got to get that. I got to go get that. I don't care what it costs. I'll trade you DJ Moore and a bunch of picks or whatever. I'm going to get it. That's not stable ownership.
It's not. And then when you make the wrong decision and don't take CJ Stroud, it makes it even worse. So sometimes making that mistake actually exposes that you don't be needing to do that kind of stuff in the first place. We're going to continue with more quarterback talk. We got the 49ers won a very, very good game on Thursday night, where you saw that dynamic between getting the right GM, getting the right coach, and getting the quarterback that is absolutely perfect for that coach and why that works. We'll discuss all of that more here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Man, I love me some Prize Picks, man. Believe it or not, they got over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season at Prize Picks. Here's what you do. Sign up today to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. So here's what you do, man. Slide on over to prizepicks.com and enter the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's right. Enter the code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get that $50 bonus when you make your first wager. Make sure you go on over to Prize Picks and have you a good time. All right, man. We're right here on Locked On NFL. Continue with my man Matt Williamson here on Locked On NFL. We're talking a little quarterback. We're a little quarterback-centric today, man, and I love that kind of stuff. Quarterback and coach-centric. That's what I like to call it. The 49ers are a coach-centric organization. They won a game last night, and it had the imprints of Kyle Shanahan written all over it. I just watch those games, especially when Josh Purdy has it going. I watch the game. It just looks like this kid is a walking quarterback drill, for one. Mm-hmm. The other thing is he looks like an extension of the mind of the dude holding that clipboard. And I think that's a super, super important aspect of this entire thing.
Without question. I mean, as great as Brady was, he was that. You know, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the best combinations in history, Shula and Marino. I mean, whatever it is, Walsh and Montana. I mean, you go back and back and back, that those two, it's not, was Belichick more important than Brady, or was Brady more important than Belichick? Neither one could have done it without the other, you know, and you have to be on the same page. And I know we're going to kind of talk about bringing that guy in later in the process when the nest is already built and handpicking your own guy, as opposed to, you know, you hire someone to take over the Titans and say, fix Will Levis. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's tough.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's hard. That's hard. That's hard to take over a pot of chili after somebody burnt the onions when they first started cooking them.
Right.
That's very, very difficult to do, man. You got to be a genius and a whiz to get that done. Listen to a reaction from last night's game from Locked On 49ers. Your buddy Brian Peacock, of course, and my man Eric Crocker.
The San Francisco 49ers have a piece of the NFC West, victorious over the Seattle Seahawks 36-24 on Thursday Night Football.
This was a huge win for the 49ers. What the 49ers were risking was going 0-3 in their division, 0-4 in the conference, falling to 2-4 on the season, with Kansas City and the Dallas Cowboys coming up, two opponents that will be definitely challenging. So I thought it was huge. No matter how the 49ers won, you went on the road on a short week, right? That always favors the home team. I don't care who you're playing. It always favors the whole home team. And you figured out a way to pull off a win. So I know there's some things that you want to see the 49ers improve on, some things that looked a little sketchy, some things that got a little bit better, and definitely some rookies to talk about. But I think the biggest thing should be the 49ers got the W in what felt like and what I really feel was a must-win game even this early in the season.
They have their guy. You can call him a game manager. You can call him whatever you want. I call him a really, really good top 7, top 8 quarterback. A guy that looks like a dude that started as a true freshman and played all 4 years as the starting quarterback in college.
Yep. Again, kind of like Jayden Daniels, came in the league with a lot of experience in big games. I mean, was he the best quarterback? He didn't win the Heisman or anything like that, like Daniels. He wasn't the second pick in the draft, but he was very mentally mature. He's very tough. Croc mentioned it too. I mean, if you look at their next 5 or 6 games, it is brutal for the Niners. If it had been 2-4 and 0-3 in the division, they would have had problems. And speaking of problems, Seattle's O-line is a real problem. Yeah, they got some issues.
They might as well have me and you out there blocking the way they do. I told somebody the other day, they blocking like they don't like their quarterback because, that's just the way it looks sometimes. And they've used a lot of resources on that too. But you notice there's a theme here. The theme is when you talk about the 49ers, before you talk about Purdy, you talk about the coach, Shanahan, you talk about Lynch, right? Before you talk about, when you talk about Brady, you used to talk about McDaniels, you used to talk about Belichick. And sometimes it even got to the GM. That was kind of who Bill Belichick was. You notice, though, you probably can't ask the average fan, okay, Bryce Young, who's the coach and who's the GM? You don't know, right? And same thing for Caleb Williams. And I think we're going down this road a little bit. I'm not saying that they're doing them a disservice. They're 3-2. They got a big game against Jacksonville, another team that has a quarterback that's bigger than anybody in the franchise. And, it seems like it would work better if when you talk about Trevor Lawrence, you wouldn't talk about him. You talk about the other people. And he just kind of, I know who Tom Moore was, and I know who Howard Mudd was. That's who Peyton Manning had. He had like a cocoon of people around him that really, really, really just let him be a quarterback. They're over there in London waiting on the Jaguars to get there. I think the Jaguars finally have arrived, though they waited for a little while. Listen to this comment that DJ Moore said, and Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears is going to explain exactly why it was taken out of context.
The Chicago Bears got to London well ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And since they've been there, Jaquan Brisker has been ruled out with an injury, and DJ Moore called Caleb Williams bossy. Lots to get to from across the pond. We've seen this ongoing sort of thing where people take snippets of DJ Moore's body language on the sideline or after an incomplete pass, or they see him. There have been pictures or clips of DJ Moore sitting on the bench alone on the Bears sideline, and it's been a bunch of this sort of like, is DJ Moore unhappy? Is he somehow getting some sort of diva reputation? We talked about this a little bit last week on Friday's podcast, but we got another layer in this that's sort of in the same veins of not a real issue at all, but some people were taking it out of context in the same way that 3-second footages of the broadcast were getting taken out of context too, because the Bears had, the players meet with the media in London this week while they're getting ready for the game, like they would any other week, and panic button alert, DJ Moore called Caleb Williams bossy, said Caleb's been bossy and telling them what to do on the field and stuff. And so, okay, all of a sudden, DJ Moore must then be upset at his quarterback. And even DJ Moore came on Twitter and responded to somebody who was, getting upset about it. He said it's a jokey joke.
Jokey joke, bossy boss. I don't care what you call it. But we always seem to be talking about stuff like this when they don't have a voice, a spokesman. Like one guy, and I'm not talking about like Jerry Jones, because we'll get to him in a minute, but I mean like a coach and somebody that you could ask these questions, I think, can take the heat off of these young guys when all of this stuff happens.
Yeah, and there's some organizations that go out and get veteran players too, like a Keenan Allen, but he's new. It's different than Cam Hayward's been in Pittsburgh his whole life and tells you how it goes. You can kind of manufacture that culture, but it's tough. There's there's some burnt onions in the chili already, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
and the other thing, lastly, like Caleb Williams or any early pick comes into a locker room, and there's a guard who's 32 years old with 5 kids and 18 million in the bank, and looks at this dude and like, I'm gonna have to see a lot before I'm buying into your nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean, man. I got a quick military story for you. We were on a flight line. It was during, Desert Storm. And there's the dude who had been in for 31 years. He was enlisted, right?
Wow.
So there's a little officer bops out there. We salute him and we pay him respect. And he starts to tell the other guy, what he's supposed to be doing. So the dude pulls him to the side so he doesn't call him out in front of us. So all of a sudden, the guy just salutes and says, carry on, and walked away. I said, what did you tell him? He said, son, I've been doing this since you was in diapers. And I want you, the next time you question me, I want you to put your nose on my sleeve and run your nose at my sleeve and see how many bumps you feel. And that was the chevrons. And it was just like, you said what? He said, yeah, but don't you try that. You got to be a person in authority to say stuff like that to authority. Speaking of authority, Thanksgiving Bowl, I call it. Dallas and Detroit are playing this weekend. They always play on Thanksgiving. They never play each other because they both usually host a game. You want to talk about what we've been talking about? You want to talk about coach-centric versus somebody else-centric, like owner-centric? This is the perfect example. And I got a whole gang of people that's going to tell y'all exactly what I'm talking about here as we get to segment number 3 here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, man. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. I love saying that because it's absolutely true. If you're in the middle of the game, and you get a hunch and you can check out the latest stats and even view play-by-play, you can do so much more on the same page where you make your bet. You no longer have to sit there and hope the internet works if you're at the game or somewhere else, because you want to go from page to page. You can see everything on the same page at FanDuel. Also, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So make sure you have some fun while you watch the game and make you some money. The way you do that is to visit FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, running it down here on Locked On NFL with my man, Matt Williamson, my Friday guy here, the local expert. There are so many examples, and I used the 49ers earlier, where the dynamic between GM and coach is so good, and they said, you know what, let's go get our guy. Let's find our guy. And by that, you get a great structure, you get great infrastructure, you get the nest. I mean, we talked about bird nests, we done talked about chili and onions being burnt, but it's all a big theme here, bro. And the thing is, I don't think there's a better example than the GM, the coach in Detroit, because trust me, when I think of the Detroit Lions, I think of Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. And the way that they have handpicked Jared Goff, it is very, very similar to the Purdy situation in San Francisco.
Without question. I mean, people forget when the Goff-Stafford trade happened, the Rams basically said, we're going to give you Goff and we'll throw in more stuff so you take him. You know what I mean? Like, we got to get his contract out of here. And the GM of the Lions came over from the Rams and knew Goff, and said, I can use this to my advantage. We're going to be a tough-minded offensive line-driven team. We're going to go for it on 4th down a lot, which people say, oh, that's dumb. It costs you games. Yeah, but it resonates through the locker room too. This is how we do things here. Get used to it. And I'm sure GM and coach Campbell told Goff, those guys didn't want you. You're the first overall pick. You went to the Super Bowl, and they had to give you extra. They had to give us extra to take you off their hands. That's how you light a fire under somebody. The talent's there.
That is how you light a fire on somebody. Before we do our whip around, we're going to start a whip around. But before we do that, and before we actually pick that game, I want you to listen to this crew, man. This is called the NFC squad, the Locked On NFC squad. We do the AFC too. We meet every single week. if you hear a lie, don't worry about it because it's all about entertainment. But lies might be told on this show. I want you to listen to what they said about the Cowboys.
Landon, let's stick with the Cowboys though, man. I mean, of course the Cowboys can't do anything without some drama, so we have to have the delay. I don't know why it's the Cowboys' fault, but I'm going to put it on the Cowboys anyway. But 20-17, they get that win over the Steelers, 3-2, firmly in second place behind MVP candidate Jayden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. How do you feel coming out of that Sunday or that Monday night game?
In there.
Sunday night game, sorry.
Yeah, definitely had to get that in there. Look, I feel good that the team was able to pull out a win like that because that's exactly the kind of game that the Cowboys don't usually win. On the road, non-common opponent, national television, all the vibes were off for the Cowboys to win that game. And, despite Dak being it's the old Homer Simpson, right? To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all my problems. That was Dak Prescott on Sunday night, right? Turnovers in the red zone, inconsistencies with the offense. But when it came down to winning the ball game, I mean, that's kind of what he does. So, some good with the bad, but certainly the Cowboys are just surviving right now with all the injuries they've got.
That's the NFC squad. We do the AFC squad where a group of locked on experts just get together, talk ball. Like I say, tell lies. It's a weekly show. Make sure you tune in and check that out wherever you get your podcast. Tale of two teams, though. One is GM coach-centric. The other is owner. We're going to skip the coach, and then we're going to go to players asking for money and talking and going back and forth at each other in the meeting. It's just a wild difference, a subtle difference that makes a whole bunch of difference in the end.
It really does. And I've never been part of the Cowboys organization, but I've known people that have, and people that are close to it. And a lot of them think that is a really difficult place to work because to win because of the influence of the owner. I mean, no other owner has like a weekly radio show, or is that that present. That's not necessarily a good thing,
Yeah, man. I used to always notice after the games, they catch Jerry in the hallway. It's like, well, damn, the coach who's at the podium or wherever he's supposed to be. It's always the first person you hear from is Jerry Jones. I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to lose. I don't think a team like Dallas in their right mind in any way could ever beat a team like Detroit, even if the game is in Dallas. What do you think?
I think so too. I mean, at the line of scrimmage too. I was shocked the Steelers didn't do more at the line of scrimmage in a game where there's so many injuries that Dallas had. And Dak was really, really good in that game, but Goff can go toe-to-toe with him in that regard. I think Detroit wins that one big, yeah.
I do too. Let's do a quick rip around the NFL. We're going to start off early in the morning on Sunday over in London. Jacksonville is in a must-win situation at Chicago. What you got?
I wish your Jags would have went earlier, but they know what they're doing. I do think that's a big deal. I think that's somewhat of a home environment for them. I think they put a little bit of momentum together here and win this game.
I do too. I think it's going to be a close one, though. Very close one. Arizona at Green Bay. Interesting game since Arizona actually showed a lot of life last week and beating the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm a big Green Bay believer, though, too. I think Love has settled in post-injury. They got a lot of weapons. Arizona's defense just doesn't have talent, and that's a tough place to play. I like the Packers to win this one.
I agree. And I like Monty Austin for it, but they still have a lot of work to do on their defense. How about Indy at Tennessee?
It's a tough one for me because I don't know, as we're recording this, is it Richardson or is it Flacco? Because, frankly, I think Flacco gives them a better chance to win. So I'll go with the Titans, but I don't feel strong about it.
Yeah, I think Flacco I think this is a situation where you don't want your starter to come back. And that's
right.
That's a wild
take another
thought.
Week off, right?
Yeah, that's a wild thought, especially since we're sitting here talking about the nest and what the nest represents for a young quarterback. Houston at New England. Ooh, this one might get ugly.
I'm really excited to watch Drake May, but it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long year. They just don't have anything around them. I think Houston's a really good football team.
I do too. Tampa Bay at New Orleans, and these NFC South games, they turn, man. This is always a good game, by the way, and the Saints always seem to have their number. But I'm telling you, man, this is a game now that this whole division is starting to look really, really exciting, with the exception of Carolina, of course.
I know. I just wish it wasn't Spencer Rattler. I mean, first career start against a Todd Bowles-led defense, trying to get Vita Vea blocked with a backup center. I think the Bucs control both lines of scrimmage, and I wish we would see Carr in this one because I do think those three teams in the South are highly competitive.
Highly competitive and highly entertaining. Cleveland at Philly, who's coming off of a bye, but really, really still trying to get their identity. They're getting their 2 wide receivers back from what I heard.
Yeah, it sounds like Lane Johnson's going to be back too, and I think the Browns are broken, to be very honest with you. I don't think I'd pick them to beat anybody right now.
I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach too, but he's going to probably have to show me that he's a good coach. He's going to have to show me somewhere else. Let's go back up.
Ownership gets in the way. Ownership gets in the way a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Let's go to the Beltway, Washington and Baltimore. 2 surprisingly good. Washington is a surprise, but Baltimore has gotten it together after a very, very slow start.
Yeah, still some concerns about the Ravens' pass defense, but we were talking about this a little earlier about this game. Think about this from Harbaugh's perspective. I mean, he has seen every game plan that every opposing defensive coordinator has tried on Lamar, and he kind of knows what works and kind of knows what doesn't. So I think they'll have a really good plan for Daniels. And I don't think Daniels is going to fall on his face, and we're going to talk about that. Was he a fluke or not? But I think they keep it close. But I just don't know the Commanders can deal with that rushing attack.
Yep. Now you talk about coach-centric, Sean Payton hosting Jim Harbaugh. Very, very good game. I think Denver's playing well on defense, and the Chargers are a little bit too banged up for me.
Yeah, I really like what Denver's defense is doing and their offensive line. That really surprises me. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as, some of the other quarterbacks we talked about, especially Purdy, but Nix and Payton are starting to kind of grow together.
They are growing together. And, this is exactly what that nest is standing up again.
Bad.
Yep. Pittsburgh and Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is making a little bit of a quarterback change. And I got the Steelers.
Me too. And I can promise you that place will be about 2/3 black and gold, not black and silver.
Waving those towels around.
Yep.
That's right. Atlanta at the Burnt Onions. Carolina.
Ooh, I got to take the Falcons here too. I know I'm taking all favorites, but Carolina's D is rough, and I think Atlanta's starting to really find themselves.
A little bit of an intriguing game because of what has to happen or what needs to happen for the Bengals, but they're going up against the Giants, who surprisingly played well last week.
Yeah, and this is going to be an upset special for me. I do think the Giants can win this game at home. The Bengals defense, I think, is in really bad shape. I love how Burrow's playing, but the Giants rush the passer well. They got 2 good young corners that should be able to at least deal with Chase and Higgins to some degree. I think they can pull this upset off.
You want to talk about GM, coach, quarterback, Buffalo. That's another example.
No doubt.
GM, coach, quarterback. It's the same identity. Everybody's on the same page playing against a team where Aaron Rodgers is the GM, the coach, and the quarterback. Who you got Monday?
I think the Jets D is going to cause them a lot of problems. I really feel like Buffalo is a receiver away. They really struggle with man coverage. Devontae Adams, to me, should be a target for this team. But, man, with a new coach and all that, I think there's a lot of dysfunction in Gotham. I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to take Buffalo as well. Man, this was fun, man. Talking about these quarterbacks this way. We always get it in here on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL twice a day. Early in the morning, my man Tyler Rowland, the Madman, will bring it to you and give you a double shot of espresso, and then you come hang out with me at the barbershop and get to see guys like Matt. And we get to talk about chili and onions being burnt and all that stuff. All right, Matt, thanks again. We'll see you next Friday. You guys make sure you tap in, take care of each other. And prayers up to all of those people affected by the storms. We are thinking about you here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Hopefully you guys make it through, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.